Welcome everybody to Vtiger Customer Support Webinar Series. We're going to have 4 parts to this series. Today, we're going to start with simplifying customer support operations. In the subsequent sessions, we're going to deep dive into automation use cases. Then we're going to show you how to leverage insights to boost your support team performance. And finally, we're going to have a deep dive session into customization. If you need us to cover other topics, please feel free to let us know, and then we'll be happy to have webinars to cover topics that are of interest to you. Your host today, that's myself, Krishna, and I specialize in value selling at Vtiger. And I'll be showing you how to leverage Vtiger to simplify your customer support operations. Today's agenda. I've broken this up into 3 simple parts. Firstly, what does simplifying customer support operations entail? Second, how do we accomplish this with Vtiger? And then I'm going to leave some room for Q&A. Please also use the chat session to interact with our other support team members who are also on the call. So let's start with simplifying customer support operations. So what does this entail? It's common for a lot of customers to jump into a Helpdesk tool and start using it. And it's a usual practice to map whatever it is that you're already doing to the Helpdesk tool and then expect results from the Helpdesk tool. This usually doesn't happen because there may be a lot of inefficiencies in your current processes, and that's why we strongly encourage our customers to perform a critical assessment of their current support operations. So you have to ask a lot of critical questions, and it's not always easy to answer them, but it's always good to have a thorough discussion on the following topics. Okay. Firstly, you need to know your customers' expectations for turnaround times. These can also be internal team targets if you don't have explicit agreements with your customers. See, if it's not clear, it is very difficult to fulfill them. Targets cannot be vague. For example, we hear this often: I need a timely response. Right? This can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. One example of a clear target would be 1-hour response and a 4-hour resolution for critical issues. What constitutes a critical issue? This is something that would very much depend on your business. So we'll explain for one use case as to how we classify an issue as a critical issue. Have you defined a clear flow for cases, from creation all the way to closure? And this flow has to be aligned with your business. Are you leveraging automation repetitive tasks? A well-defined process always yields to effective automation. If you have not defined processes very well, it's very difficult to automate them. Then do you have an effective way to categorize cases? Right? Because you always need to know what cases need attention immediately, and some cases may need attention later on. So you need a way to categorize the cases so that you make use of the agent's time effectively. Do your agents see cases only pertinent to them? This is important. Most businesses will have issues completely unrelated to one another, right? So you need to be able to make sure cases are routed effectively to agents who are equipped to actually resolve those cases. Now, do your agents follow a consistent process in case handling? So all agents need to prioritize cases based on the same criteria. They need a way to avoid collision because we don't want multiple agents to work on the same case. However, they need to collaborate for collective wisdom, because if an agent is working on a particular case, he or she knows that another member of the team is knowledgeable in a particular area. So you need to be able to leverage collective knowledge across the team. Do agents respond in a consistent way? Right? Do they use templates? For example, if the same case is reported by multiple customers, is the response consistent across all the customers and across all the agents? And then do you have a clear escalation hierarchy when things go wrong? Because if a case is being handled by an agent, and if the agent is unable to fulfill the target turnaround time, and let's say an hour passes and the case is still not fulfilled, you need a way to escalate these cases to the supervisor or other stakeholders who need to be informed. Finally, you need to be able to alert agents when deadlines are approaching. Okay. So I'm going to use a simple use case. This would entail a HR BPO specialist. So this is actually a real use case, and their support center is powered by Vtiger. So SMB clients and also Fortune 500 clients outsource their payroll, insurance, and benefits functions to the HR BPO specialist. Employees from the SMB clients and also the Fortune 500 clients would report issues that are related to payroll, insurance, benefits to the HR BPO specialist. And the agents, customer support agents in the HR BPO specialist would have to answer questions, would have to resolve issues. Okay. So now let's see how Vtiger can help you. The first thing that you need to do is to structure your team. Right? You need to assign roles, and you need to organize agents into groups. Then you need to set targets. Right? Business hours play an important role, and then you need to specify response and resolution targets. Finally, you need to define an efficient flow. So let's look at roles and agents, roles and groups. So roles play an important role, because with roles, you can control what your team members can do with cases. For example, you can define who can assign cases to who. For example, you may not want agents to have the ability to assign cases to other agents or supervisors, whereas you may want supervisors to have the ability to assign cases to all agents in the team. In the second example, you can also control who can view, edit, and delete cases. You may not want agents to delete cases. You may not want agents to edit cases that do not belong to them. Right? So all of these things you can actually control with roles. Then you have to organize agents into groups. What this does is that it gives you the ability to route cases to the right agents. For example, you can route login issues to IT support agents. Similarly, you can route payroll issues to payroll experts, and so forth. So let's now jump into the product and see how roles and groups are configured. Okay. So roles are configured under the settings. For our HR support center, we have a very simple structure. We have a head of customer support. Then we have the two support managers, support manager and the IT administrator. And the agents actually are grouped under the support manager and the IT administrator. Okay, so let's now look at groups. So we have three groups. The way we have set up these groups is to make sure cases can be routed to the right agents. For instance, we have the IT support that handles login related issues. We have payroll support to handle payroll related issues. And finally, benefits support to handle any benefits related issues. So this is very simple, based on the type of cases that the help center is supposed to handle. Okay, now let's look at business hours. Why are business hours important? In most cases, issues reported on a weekend are not looked into until Monday morning. So this is normal, I think, for a lot of support centers. So it helps to communicate this to your customers so they're aware of it. Because if I'm a customer and I have an issue and I report the issue at 6 p.m. on Friday, it's likely that case may not get looked into until Monday morning. So if I'm aware of it, then I'll not be expecting a response within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever it is that has been communicated to me. So business hours also ensure agents don't get penalized for the time that elapses outside of their agreed upon shift. So let's see how to configure business hours in Vtiger. So we have HR Center business hours. Let's look at how this looks. So we have chosen a time zone, that's the Asia Kuala Lumpur time zone, because this HR support center will be serving clients in the Southeast Asian region. So it's actually pretty simple. So we have Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. as the shift hours. And Saturday, Sundays are off, non-working day. And then you can also add holidays. We have around, I think, 2 weeks of holidays for this support center, but I've actually not gone ahead and configured those holidays for this webinar. So now let's look at SLA targets. Before we start specifying SLA targets, we need to categorize issues. I think it's probably one of the most important things so that your agents can give the right attention to cases that deserve the right attention. Right? We're not saying that cases that are not critical don't deserve attention, but you can respond to cases that are less important in 24 hours or 48 hours versus responding to cases that are urgent within 1 hour or 2 hours. Okay, so immediate. So these could be login problems, queries on medical coverage, or tax-related questions. So these cases may need a response within an hour and a resolution within 2 hours. Second is urgent cases. So these don't need immediate attention, but they're still urgent. So the response, a response may be required within 2 hours and resolution within a day. Questions related to filing taxes and claiming medical expenses may fall into this category. Finally, non-urgent cases. Requests like update my phone number, where do I find my tax documents, etc., are considered non-urgent. And a response may be required within a day and a resolution within 2 days. So now let's see how these are configured in Vtiger. So let's look at the HR Support Center SLA policies. So the business hours, we have chosen the HR Center business hour we just configured. And you can see the first response and also the resolution targets set appropriately as we discussed. And you'll also see alerts and escalations ticked for immediate cases. So we want to make sure for immediate cases, when there's only 30 minutes left, we remind the agent that you have 30 minutes to resolve the issue. This is called the SLA alert. We also want to ensure we escalate cases, immediate cases that are not resolved. If it doesn't get resolved, half an hour after when it was due, we want to escalate that to the supervisor. Okay. So these are alerts and escalations are useful to ensure agents get a heads up that targets are approaching. At the same time, when targets are not met, you're able to escalate these cases to supervisors and other stakeholders as required by your business. Now, let's look at the case flow. I think this is also very important to define a clear flow that is aligned with your business. You have to define the states that the cases need to be in and also the transitions that influence a case to go from one state to the other. Okay. So the way we do this in the Help Center, every time a case is created, we put it in the state called new. So when it's assigned to an agent, we label it as assigned. When an agent accepts the case, we consider the case open. When an agent needs more information, So the agent would request this information from the customer and put the case on wait. Pending HR, this is a custom state that we have added for the HR support center. When an agent requests more information from the customer and puts the case on wait, and when the customer responds with the information that was needed, we put the state as pending HR. This is to ensure that the agents know that the customer has responded to the request for information. Okay. Resolved, when an agent believes the case is resolved, so the case would be set, the state of the case would be set to resolved. And when a customer accepts the resolution, the case is closed. In some cases, a customer has to explicitly accept a resolution. In our HR support center, when a case is resolved, we give customers 3 working days to accept or reject the case. If they accept the case, they don't have to do anything. If they're not happy with the resolution, they just need to reply to the resolution message and the case will be reopened. So reopened is also a custom state that we have added because in Vtiger, what we typically do is when a resolved case, when a customer replies to a resolved case, we just put it back into open. But for the HR support center, they actually needed the case to be called reopen. So this is something that we've added through a workflow. Now let's look at case routing to group. Right? So you can route cases ad hoc. Right? Supervisor can basically route cases based on what is contained in the case. After inspecting the contents of the case, the supervisor can route the case to the right group. You can also automate based on the content. For example, if the case contains terms like login, password, you can route it to IT support. If it contains the insurance related terms, you can route it to the benefits team. Similarly, if it contains pension, provident fund, etc., it can also be routed to the benefits team. If it is tax related question, it can be routed to the payroll team. So let's see how this works in Vtiger. So here we see 2 cases. These are 2 new cases that are not assigned to a group, but the first case has already been assigned to payroll support, but unable to access my provident fund statements, this case has not been assigned to a team yet. So this can either be automated, but supervisors can also assign it manually. They would just double click on the list view and they would select whatever team they want to assign it to. In this case, it would be a benefits support case. And then it gives you the option to also assign it to the agent in one shot. So if you're not ready to assign it to an agent yet, you can just select an option and leave it blank, apply, and then accept. And the case is now unable to access my PF statements has been assigned to benefits support. Now let's look at how automations work, because we discussed inspection of the contents in a case and routing it to the right team. So here we have configured a workflow to route login issues to IT support. So this workflow would do the following. On case creation, so we would inspect if the summary or the case title contains either login or password. And if it does, we would basically route the case to IT support. And what that means is we assign the team field of the case to IT support. What that effectively does is routes the case to the IT support team. So now look at how agents accept cases and how supervisors assign cases to agents within a group. Supervisors can manually assign a case to an agent. Agents can also accept cases that they are equipped to handle. So new cases, for example, if there are new cases that are not being looked into by other agents, so agent has the liberty to go and accept that case and start working on it. So you can also use agent availability. I think this is important for larger support centers. What this means is that you want to assign cases to agents who are not only best equipped to handle the case, but also are available. For example, it should be within the shift hours. And currently, that agent is actually active on the CRM. And you may also want to look at the backlog of the agent, because if the agent already has 100 cases, although that agent is best equipped to handle a particular case, he or she may not be the most appropriate person to get new cases, right? Because they already have a big backlog. You can also use round robin. This is a popular mechanism to make sure there is an equitable number of cases that are assigned to each agent, but it does not include the complexity of the case that's getting assigned to different agents. So both agent availability and round robin we will be supporting in by end of Q2. So now let's see how assigning and accepting is done in Vtiger. So we looked at this case, and let's look at Eric's cases. Sorry, let's look at actually benefits cases. And when we look at this unable to access my provident fund statements, this is the case that we assigned to payroll, to benefits. Now this is not assigned to anybody yet. So this can be manually assigned by double clicking and then selecting the right agent. For example, I want to assign this case to Thomas, and then I'll click assign, and that case will be assigned to Thomas. But agents can also accept cases on their own. For example, I look at this case here. So this case is not assigned to anybody yet, and I can accept the case with the accept button right here. Okay. Or this case can also be accepted by the list view. So let's use the list view to accept the case. So this case now is assigned to Eric. Now let's look at how agents resolve and close cases. The first thing that an agent has to look at is how to prioritize cases. Let's say I'm an agent, I walk into my office 9 a.m. Monday morning, and I want to know what cases I need to work on. It's very important every day of the week when an agent walks in, logs into Vtiger CRM, they need to know what cases they're supposed to work on. So it's very important to establish a pecking order. For the HR support center, we always ask agents to work on escalated cases first. Escalated cases are those that have violated SLA and have been escalated to the supervisors. Second, you may want your agents to look at reopened cases, because your agents have responded, they believe they have provided resolution, but the customer is not happy with the resolution. So these are the reopened cases. Third is pending HR. So you had requested information from your customer. The customer has actually responded with the information. So those are the cases you may also want to address quickly. You can then look at open, assigned, and new cases. And you can use priority and urgency to decide what cases you want to work on first. You can also place cases on wait when you need more information. I'm going to show you how to do that in Vtiger. You can also close cases. You can choose to close cases that are in wait state for 72 hours. This is actually normal practice. You ask for some information from a customer. The customer has 3 days or 1 week, whatever it is that fits your business. If they don't respond with that information within 3 days or 1 week, you automatically close the case. And then you can also place cases on pending HR. This is automated. So pending HR is a custom state that we have added. So when a customer replies to a case that was waiting, we have a workflow that basically changes the state to pending HR. So it's on customer reply to waiting cases. Reopening of resolved cases on customer reply. Vtiger by default puts the case into open state. But for the HR support center, we actually change the state to reopen. Closing cases can be automated. If a case stays in resolved state for 72 hours, so you've given your customer 72 hours to accept the case, accept the resolution, and if they don't reply, then the case gets automatically closed after 72 hours. So let's actually look at how these things are performed in Vtiger. Okay, let's look at Eric's cases here. We can clearly see that there are a couple of reopened cases. There are cases that have been escalated. There's one case that has been escalated. This is 3 hours past due. It's immediate case. And there is a resolved case, but that has fulfilled SLA. So you want to look for the red highlighting. So this is the first case that Eric would work on. Subsequently, Eric would look at reopened cases because a resolution was provided for these two cases, but the customer is actually not happy with the resolution. Subsequently, Eric can look at the open cases. So this is escalated. This case is also very important that we already discussed. So this Eric would work on first, and then there's an open case, right? That's urgent, but there is 15 hours left. So this is the case that Eric would jump into next. There are a couple of cases that are in wait for customer, so there's not a whole lot Eric can do about these cases. Okay, so let's say Eric looks at this case and wants to work on it. So a customer is asking for a pre-approval for surgery. So what Eric would do is, contact the insurance providers. Eric would provide the insurance providers contact. And there will be a name of the contact. So Eric would provide this information and put the case as resolved. And this is a general question, and this is related to medical insurance, and the resolution type is answer the query. You say. So this case would be considered resolved. Let's go back to Eric's cases. And there is one more urgent case that Eric has to work on. Let's look at this. Portal access. So in this case, Eric may need more information. So Eric may need what is the error message you're seeing. So Eric would request this information from the customer and put the case on wait for customer, and the type for issue is a complaint, and this is related to other. So this list you can customize. You can have IT login problems here. That's something that I have not added, so we'll just choose others for now. Okay, so now the case is set to wait for customer. Okay, so now let's look at some more workflows. So once a case is resolved, or once a case is put into wait, we give customers 72 hours if the case is resolved, and the case gets closed after 72 hours if the customer doesn't reply. If the case is waiting in the HR support center case, we give customers 48 hours to respond with the information. If a response is not received by 48 hours, within 48 hours, the case will be automatically closed. So let's look at this workflow quickly. Okay. So every time a case is updated, so the condition met basically means that how many times can this condition be met, right? So when a resolved case stays in resolved state for 72 hours, that condition happens only once, right? So only the first time the conditions are met. And the condition is status, hours since resolved, and 72. You update the field, you set the state of the case to closed. So the status of the case is set to closed. Okay, so there are other workflows here. Update state to pending HR, because this is a custom state. Let's actually quickly walk through this. So this is a custom state that we added. Pending HR is a custom state. So when a customer replies to a case that was in waiting, so we want to change the state to pending HR. So when a case is updated and every time the conditions are met. This is important because a case can go to wait multiple times. So every time a case goes from wait back to open, that is when the customer replies, we want to change the state of the case to pending HR. So let's look at the conditions. The status has changed from wait for customer, has changed to open. So we want to change the status to pending HR. So what this means is that Vtiger automatically changes the state from wait for customer to open when a customer replies. But we want the state to change to pending HR. That's why we have added this workflow. So this is all I had for this webinar. Thank you for participating, and we really look forward to seeing you again in our next webinar next week.